Firstly, Ronan, how are you finding your new role at La Rochelle? 10 games into the season, sitting sixth. Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, there's definitely a hangover from last season, I think, and the fact that we've obviously had a fantastic, brilliant season, getting to two finals, but ultimately not getting over the line in either. But that's disappointing in one regard, but it was huge progress on the other hand. In terms of, I suppose, this season we had a difficult start, slow start, and we were definitely probably minds a little bit looking back as opposed to looking forward. But I think we're in good shape going into the second block of the season, and I suppose I was probably doing exactly the same job for the last two seasons. So in terms of upheaval or change in role, that was not an issue, and not sort of from internally. There was very little change, obviously, with just John and moving on to Claremont.
And obviously you have a few top 14 games coming up, but after that, December into Europe, it's always pretty exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we as I said earlier, it's very hard to look like you would when you were at Munster, that you always knew, okay, I kind of am a 3-week countdown to Europe now, and then it's European week, and there was massive excitement with here. But the fact that domestic competition is of such a high standard, our prep will start on the Monday before Glasgow, but that's sufficient time. That gives us loads of time to prepare for a very important game. But we'll be excited by Europe. We are looking forward to it, and the new format of the competition excites, I think, a lot of the French teams, especially us, because you want to try and do well in Europe, and you want to try and do well in your domestic competition.
There's a bit of history with Glasgow there. They beat you in 2019 home when you went away and beat them. So
yeah,
it was interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, very interesting, really, because I think, well, certainly for us, because we kind of don't have a history in the competition, but yeah, they would deservedly beat us in the Flandin, and we probably deservedly beat them on a horrible night in Glasgow in the return game, where we probably weren't expecting much from the game. But that is a good message in the fact sometimes when you're expecting stuff, it doesn't happen for you, and other times when you're not expecting stuff, you get breaks. But preparation has been good, I think, this season, but there will be excitement definitely for Champions Cup. It's new to the players, but after the journey of last year, boys will want to try and get to the knockout stages, and that's has to be the starting goal for us. But we know that it'll take a lot of accurate performances.
And you obviously yourself, so much history with the competition itself, winning it twice, and then you've mentioned a couple of times there, getting to a final last year. What makes it so special? Is it just a different ball game than the league, or how does the Heineken Cup, in your eyes, even as a boy growing up, what makes it so good to you?
Yeah, well, I suppose it depends what country you grew up in. In Ireland, it was the be all and end all. That was the focal point of our season. You were lucky enough to play internationals for Ireland, play European Cup for Munster, and you got to travel all around Europe in massive games and full stadia, and on the best of surfaces, in soccer stadia and rugby stadia. And then you got to test yourselves against the best teams as a competitor, as a sports person. What more did you want? And then you were with a consistent, probably hard working team like Munster, and it was just incredibly exciting times and good days to be part of that team with ferocious support.
And that final last year, or the couple of finals that you lost, what have you learned so as much in those sort of last 6 months as a coach from them?
Yeah, you've learned so much, really. I think you obviously do learn more from defeat. There were some key messages, most definitely. And I think one of them was is probably you've 80 minutes to be accurate. Otherwise, you can talk all summer about ifs and buts. Well, essentially, you don't have to be the best team for the season. You have to be best team for 80 minutes. And if you're not accurate for those 80 minutes, you won't get what you want, and that would happen. But also, I think in finals rugby, it's very different in the fact that you got to put your opposition under pressure, and you got to squeeze them. If you don't squeeze them, they don't doubt. And if you don't get Toulouse to doubt, it becomes very difficult to get what you want. But they had more experience probably of the big occasion. We're growing as a team, we're getting better, and we're getting excited by it.
Yeah, I looked at the team you played against Bordeaux a couple of weeks ago, and that team's very similar to the one that played in the final. Do you think that's a good thing going forward for you guys?
Yeah, it is, as you say, because there's managing players when you want them to try and be at their best, maybe in May or June of the following calendar year. There's a little bit more to it than starting fast. You got to manage players, you got to manage a squad, you got to manage a group. You got to create cohesion. You got to give guys opportunity. You can't bank on a certain number of players to play the games. Otherwise, after 20 games, you're going to run out of steam. So we had a big emphasis on, I suppose, making our squad players feel valued, that they can fit in, and it's not interesting who's wearing the jersey, but if it's a yellow and black jersey, that jersey performs. So it's been fascinating, kind of, I suppose, watching some great performances, some performances you've been disappointed with, but that's, I suppose, why I'm involved in this sport, because it challenges you, and then it kind of it creates massive, I suppose, hope within you, and then your hope sometimes get crushed on disappointing days. But I think when you sleep, you want to come back the next morning and get better, and that's what a lot of the players are doing here. But I think what is satisfying behind the scenes would be that, as you say there, I think there's a lot of quality and in the group, and also you have to be good to get to 2 finals. So as disappointing as losing were, and everyone thinks that losing is, you write it off, but actually, as you say, you don't. You take on board valuable lessons that when you get the next opportunity, whenever that is, you're better the next time. So that's certainly the mindset and the mentality we're taking.
And if we take a player like Ohio West, maybe had a couple of disappointing finals, I've noticed you've kept with him and stuck faith in him. How did your role play in that, Ronan? How do you get alongside him and, tell him to keep going and get better and better as a player?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because they're not robots. They have huge emotions, and you have to work with them, and you can see the disappointment. Yet it probably comes back to, we only have a small little period of that 80 minutes to find the solutions live. It's not easy finding solutions live as a number 10, but I think you could see that he was hurting, and I think if he wants to find solutions, I think that's the most important thing, and that he's got to probably search deep within him. And then people ask what experience is. Experience is having a coach that's 20 years older than him, that has seen those situations tenfold, that can maybe guide him towards maybe a better preparation model, or a better mental model that may stand to him when he is put under the spotlight again.
And obviously that final was a benchmark. Is that what you have to get to now? Is that seen as success, going one step further on, or how do you plan that out?
No, I don't think so. I think we look upon it differently in this club. I think we probably put a big emphasis on enjoying the journey and getting stimulated out of that. I think that's very important. I think if you're looking at next May or June, you're going to be disappointed, because 2 out of however many teams, 40 or 50 in Europe, get to those finals footy. We tasted it twice last year, but that's over. It's gone. It's of no relevance now. But we put a big emphasis on, I suppose, players enjoying themselves, and it's not from week to week, game to game, but also having competition for places, but also what's best for the team, and making sure we encourage our teammate, and make sure that we have guys that can step in for other guys, and that we probably maximize our potential, or get somewhere close to that.
And finally, lastly, as a coach, you're obviously still growing. How much do you still have to get better and better every day, or how does that work with you? Do you have any mentors or anything like that?
Yeah, of course you do. Yeah, I've been coaching nearly 8-9 years now, so it's getting to a point where you always have to have a mindset where I think you have probably confidence and certain structure about how you see things, but also the minute I think you become closed is the minute you stall. So every day is most definitely the opportunity to get better, to learn, or to bounce ideas off people that you respect within the game. And I think, having done a bit of travel, I have those kind of contacts all around the world. But it moves quickly, so you need to have a good idea of what I suppose your core principles are, your pillars of performance, and then you can tweak it as you go along. But you don't want to be setting up robotic rugby. You think, you look back and you look at some of the rugby we played against Sale, Leinster, Gloucester. It was natural, it was instinctive, and that's, I think, what I like in the players, is that they get into kind of an instinctive flow mode with a probably a framework guide as a background for them.
Yeah, Ronan, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks a lot, Stuart. Talking a bit. Thank you.
Nice one. Well, firstly, I make it your 4th season with La Rochelle. How much are you enjoying your time in France?
Yeah, it's been brilliant. Initially, when we came, it was the middle of winter. Actually, we came halfway through the season, and initially it was really difficult with the language and just adapting to the culture and stuff. But my family and I, we love being in La Rochelle, and we're really happy to have signed on again as well.
And obviously the Heineken Cup's in a couple of weeks away. Did you realise how big a tournament it was when you were playing Super Rugby, or when you first arrived here, when you started to get into the competition after a couple of seasons, you realise how big it actually was?
Yeah, I think in the Southern Hemisphere, we definitely have a lack of appreciation for probably the rugby in general. Up in the north, but I'd have to say that the European Cup, or the Champions Cup, is probably the most enjoyable competition I've played in, just purely because of how hard it is to win it. You've got so many great teams across all the best countries in Europe, vying for one trophy, and the pressure is actually enormous, which we can't appreciate. We don't have the singing and the sword as much down in the Southern Hemisphere, and that's something I really love about the north, is all the singing and the support, and it's just a bit of a different atmosphere, but very, very high pressure.
And you have Glasgow and Bath in your group. They're going to be interesting matches, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. We've been so busy with the top 14 that we haven't really looked much at the European Cup to date. We've talked a little bit about it, obviously, but it's unique in that it runs alongside the domestic competitions, which is something that we don't have in New Zealand as well. So there's so many different variables to playing up in the north, as well as the competition's been much longer as well. You almost blink and miss the Super Rugby comp. It's played at a high pace, high tempo game, and here you go summer, winter, summer. So no, it's awesome playing up here.
And obviously last year the final at Twickenham, disappointing. Dave, for you scored a try. Do you think, even though the loss is obviously still very fresh, but do you think going forward you can take some sort of positive from that defeat in the final against Toulouse?
Yeah, definitely. We're a young club in terms of the Champions Cup, and I believe we were good enough to win, and I still believe we're good enough to win. You got to take learnings out of every game, whether you win or lose, and it's a really good experience for us, and hopefully, like you said, we'll take the learnings out of that to improve a few areas of our game, maybe a few areas of maybe a few expectations of how it was going to be, and try and rectify that in the competition this season.
And it's a pretty consistent squad now, isn't it? That's going to be a good thing as well. You seem to have the same types of players, like Hire playing 9 and 10 for a while now. That's going to stand you in good stead, isn't it? Yeah,
definitely. I think a lot of the connections are still similar. The spine is still largely intact from last seasons, with a couple of blokes that are left and a couple of new additions. So no, it's going to be real good. We've got a bit of continuity there, so it'll be interesting to see how we go in the first couple of games.
You've obviously won a couple of Super Rugby titles with the Chiefs. How would you compare the team you're in now to the ones back then? Is it as good fun? Are they getting as good as that team? That was pretty incredible back then, early 2012 sort of thing. That you had some good teams playing then, didn't you?
Yeah, the team, rugby's changed so much. I think I saw a couple of highlights from those games the other day, and rugby's changed so much, so it's so hard to compare, which team would be better. But I've played, both teams. I've played with great individual players, and both the teams we had a great environment. And the thing about rugby is, it's every year is a different year, different challenges, and there's just Yeah, I don't think I could compare them, but it's thoroughly enjoyable playing across both competitions, and hopefully we can win a couple of trophies at La Rochelle.
And a word on your coach, Ronan O'Gara, obviously now director of rugby. How well do you get on with him? Is he a taskmaster? What's he like to work with?
Yeah, no, I get on really well with Rog there. You know, rugby's an interesting thing. I never thought I'd probably be getting coached by Rog. Used to think he used to be part of a rugby game we used to play when we were young kids, you know, on the Xbox or PlayStation there. But no, he's a good taskmaster. He's been to New Zealand as well, and it's interesting to hear the comparisons and learnings that he's brought in, and how, you know, he's brought his experiences from both hemispheres together, and as you can see, you know, we play an exciting brand of rugby.
And you yourself, you signed on a new deal. You must be loving your rugby. Where do you feel it is at the moment in terms of your form? Seeing you scored a couple of tries earlier on the season, do you feel full of confidence and ready to go this season, as you know, 10 games in?
Yeah, definitely, mate. You know, and as we've been a bit up and down in the French comp, but I feel like we're trending nicely. From a personal level, I just enjoy playing rugby. I love the city. I enjoy playing for La Rochelle and with a good bunch of men as well. So like I said, we'll see how we go, but I'm really excited for the Champions Cup to begin.
And finally, reaching those two finals last year, has the bar now been set? Is the next step to go and win one? You said earlier there, you think this team is good enough to win that? Is it just a bit of extra experience and composure in those big situations?
Yeah, definitely, and it's a lot of learnings, you know. Once you go to the big show, like you know, as Exeter, they lost the champions a final in England before they won it, you know. And I'm sure that if you ask them, they'd say they took a lot of lessons out of it, and obviously they became, you know, they won it a year later or 2 years later, and it's a similar thing for us. But as I said, there's so many good teams in the competition, you know. If you don't turn up on your day, you get knocked off. So dead set, I believe we've got a squad capable of winning, but I also know that you have to bring out your best on the day as well.
All right, great stuff. Great to speak to you, and good luck this weekend.
Okay, cheers, mate.